This is the Development Review Commission regular meeting for January 11th, 2022. The Development Review Commission is created to hold public meetings and hearings to provide analysis and recommendation to the City Council regarding general land use policies and applications, where the Commission has recommendatory power, and to render final decisions on specified applications where the Commission has final decision-making power, including, but not limited to, all aspects of a proposed and future development. The Development Review Commission recognizes that the creation of a desirable environment throughout the city for residents, businesses, and industry is a prime requisite for the interdependence of land values, aesthetics, and good site planning. By promoting harmonious, safe, attractive, and compatible development that is therefore considered to be in the best interest of public health, safety, and general welfare. Appealing the Development Review Commission's decisions. Any person aggrieved by a final decision of the Development Review Commission may file an appeal to the City Council within 14 calendar days after the Development Review Commission has rendered its decision. The Development Review Commission recommendations to the City Council are not final decisions. Let's see, with us today, I'll just go from my left, we have Commissioners Phil Amorosi, I'm Chairman Mike DiDomenico, Vice Chair Steve Bauer, and Commissioner Barbara Lloyd. Attending remotely, you can probably see them on your screen. And if I push a button, I can too. We should, I believe, have Don Casano, Commissioners Don Casano, Michelle Schwartz, and Scott Sumners. With us here for staff, attending virtually Saparna Dasgupta, here in chambers, Steve Abrahamson, Joanna Berry, Jason Wolf, and Ryan Levesque. And I believe Lee Jimenez is also virtual. Members of the public, just to let you know, this was discussed in our study session earlier. We have one item that was originally advertised for hearing tonight that has been removed by the applicant. So if you are online or here in person because you wish to hear case item number 5, which is the Fiji House case, that item has been withdrawn. We will not hear or deal with that matter at all today. That leaves us 2 cases to discuss, items number 3 and 4 on your agenda. Also, commissioners who are attending virtually, our computer system is being obstinate, and it's not giving us the ability to see you. So if you raise your hand to be heard, assume I'm not going to see you, and so either speak up or Joanna will get my attention and let me know that you wish to be heard. So. It should work just fine. We've only got 2 cases.
Chairman,
Yes,
this is
Saparna?
I am also watching for that, so we'll keep an eye for you.
All right, well, then I'll listen to you too if you flag me down.
Sure.
In pre-session, we reviewed the minutes for the November 10th study session and regular meeting. There were no modifications or edits to those, so we will be voting on those as they were drafted. We also, it's our intention to vote on our consent agenda. There's one item that was moved to the consent agenda. That is the item number 3, the Price and Baseline Road case. And it would be our intention to vote in the affirmative for that consent agenda, meaning that we would take no public comment and we would approve item number 3. So if you are here in the public or online and you wish to be heard on that case, let me know now, otherwise it will remain on consent agenda. We see anything? Hearing none, the consent agenda will remain as I had just said. All right, so let's deal with the meeting minutes. And I suppose we can do these in one motion for both sets of minutes. Do we have a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Casano. I would make a motion for approval of the commission study session of November 10th, 2021, and the regular meeting of November 10th, 2021.
It's been moved by Commissioner Casano. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Amorosi.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. I will take a roll call vote. Commissioner Schwartz,
Aye.
Commissioner Casano,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bauer.
Aye.
I will abstain. I was not in attendance. Commissioner Sumners
Aye.
and Commissioner Amorosi
Aye.
and Commissioner Lloyd.
Aye.
The minutes are approved with a vote of 6-0. I would now entertain a motion for their consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sumner's motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Casano. I would second that motion.
Thank you very much. It's been moved and seconded for approval of our consent agenda. I will also do a roll call vote. Commissioner Schwartz,
Aye.
Commissioner Casano,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bauer.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Commissioner Sumners,
Aye.
Commissioner Amorosi,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lloyd.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved unanimously. That brings us to our final case of the evening to hear, and this is the Miller residence. This is a request for a use permit to allow a second-story addition to an existing single-level, single-family residence located at 5602 South Rocky Point Road. I would ask the applicant to come forward, and you probably can do a more streamlined version of a presentation. That way we'll get right to any questions or concerns that the commission has. We'll follow you up with any additions that staff has to add for us. And just start off by giving us your name and city of residence. We don't need a exact
Okay,
address.
my name is Katie James. I'm from Tempe, Arizona, and I'm with Architectural Collaborative Team.
Thank you, Ms. James.
Oh, you can? Yeah, just tell me when to advance the slide. Okay, so I'm going to run you really quickly through what we're presenting to you tonight. This is 5602 South Rocky Point Road. This is from the front of the house. Next slide. This is what it looks like now. This is more of the front of the house. It's a little bitty tiny territorial style house. Next one. Next one. This is looking towards the front of the house from the back of the house on the east side. You can see it's pretty tight, but if you're familiar with all those properties in there, they're all very close together. Next slide. Next slide. This is the wall looking between the two houses. This is the west side of the house and the east side of the neighbor's property. Next slide. And this is the view on the lakefront side of the home. Okay, next slide. This is looking to the east at the tract that's next door, the access to the lake, and this is also the house to the east that you can see. Next slide. Okay, so what we're planning on doing here is adding a second story over the existing west side of the house. Presently, that west side of the house is over 12 feet tall. Where you see those two squares in the middle, those are kitchen islands, but that's the area where the two stories are going. And then because we're adding that two-story there, we're pulling the now garage out to the setback line, which is number 6. Next slide. Okay, this is just to give you an idea of what we're removing. We're expanding the bedrooms. That doesn't have anything to do with this particular request. We're removing the existing garage and remodeling that into an expanded kitchen and laundry room. Next slide. Okay, this is what, now you can see the 2-car garage. We're adding a 1-car garage where the living room presently is. And as you come into the house, we go up to stairs, and there's, next slide, there's a second story right over the first story great room area. Next slide. This is what this is planned on looking. You can see what it looks like from the east, which is probably the way you'll be able to see it the most. Then you can see it from the south. Only the people who live on the lake or on the lake will see it from the north side. And next slide. And this is the house, the way the house looks from the west. The house presently is approximately as tall as the new garage, which is a 16'6". And you see there's windows presently there that face the neighbor's yard. We do understand that the neighbor has a comment card in that you won't be able to see her house, but actually you can't see her house very well from the street now. And the part of the house, the house is already tall in the area that she's talking about being blocked away from, and the garage is not quite as tall. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is what's existing now, and you can kind of see that we're extending to the south. Next slide. Okay, so my client, Christy Miller, and I decided we needed to kind of take a look to see where all the two-story houses were. Her lot is 5602, and if you look at the slide, it says Point Road down there at the bottom. Well, her house is the one that's kind of in the corner. And we went around all the way through all these bays on the east side of the lakes, and all the two-story houses that we saw on the lakes are marked in black. And three-story houses are marked in red. There are an awful lot of them. Almost everybody's very tall. Next slide. Okay, this is the view from Christy Miller's house across the street. You can see almost every house that she looks at from her backyard now is a two-story. Next slide. And I'm just going to run through a couple. These are the two-story houses that are in her immediate vicinity. Next slide. That one's actually on her side of the lake. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. I think that's about it. Next slide. Okay, I know that one's the last one. Okay, so the point being is that we're asking for a use permit for a second story. There already has been 4 use permits in the recent past that have been approved here. And my client, as she has nowhere to add on to her house but up to add another bedroom and a study since she now works at home, we request that our use permit gets approved.
Thank you. We'll give you a couple questions, and you'll also have an opportunity to come back and respond after we read some comments in, and if there's any public comments. Have you done any second-story projects in this neighborhood?
No,
Your
I
firm?
haven't personally.
Okay. One of the comments that we heard or we read that was submitted to the city had some issues or requested some assurance that the addition of the second story wouldn't cause any potential damage to the lake wall. Can you speak to that issue?
Well, it was always my intent as the architect to have a structural engineer on my team. I haven't hired him yet, well, actually I have hired him, but he hasn't had any input because we're still in the planning stages of this. But that was totally the intention.
So that's always the intention,
Oh, yes.
and that would still happen in the future
Oh,
before
yes, yes.
pulling permits.
And typically, the foundations that we see usually can carry a second story anyway without a lot of modification.
What's the square footage for this second story addition? Just of the second story floor
Just
plate?
a second. I think it's, let me look real quick. It is 1,140 square feet.
Okay, very good. Other commission questions? Anyone? Nothing? Anyone? Scott? Don? Michelle? No? Not seeing any. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to have staff give us their presentation also now. And I think Lee is joining us.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. My name is Lee Jimenez. I'm a senior planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. Um, I'm just going to go over just the facts of the case for the record. So the Miller residence is a second story use permit request on lot 51 in the Lakes Tract F2 subdivision, which is in the R2 zoning district. Um, the applicant is requesting to add an 1,140 square foot addition to an existing 1,600 square foot single family residence. Um, the scope includes the demolition as shown in the previous presentation of some sections of the home. And then they'll be providing additional living space by the second story addition, as well as a new 2-car garage that extends further south in the existing footprint of the home. And then also a single car. So a 2-car garage and a single car garage along the south end. And then the new height of the residence will be 25 feet 4 inches. And the home, the proposed design of the home does conform to the development standards of the R2 zoning district, as well as the design standards of the F2, or what's called the Lakes Tract F2 planned residential development overlay, which is basically a zoning overlay with um, some alternate design standards in the R2. Next slide, please. So here's the request, as mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides, we have the site plan. We'll show the elevations, but I'm just going to give you the short version now and just skip ahead to the public input section. So if you could skip ahead, please. Keep going. Okay, thank you. Right there. So actually, since this slide was created, I've had actually four inquiries regarding the site. So 2 of them you've seen in the attachments. Those are emails, one from the Lakes HOA, just citing concerns, or just that she's noted that she's received some phone calls and concern of the request. Another is from a nearby property owner who was concerned about the lake wall and was requesting maybe perhaps some sort of engineering analysis to make sure that the second story addition has no impact to the existing lake wall, which I guess was built in the 70s. But just to add another note there, that portion of the lake wall is actually, there's actually a 15-foot wide restricted use easement that straddles the lake edge. And the house, including the second story addition, remains outside that easement, but the proposed observation deck does encroach into that area of the easement. However, the existing patio as it exists today was approved to be located in that easement or encroach into that easement. So the footprint of the new observation deck matches up with the same footprint as the existing patio, which was already permitted in that location. And then obviously there is an architectural review committee that sees these type of requests through the HOA. So that'll be that is actually a condition of approval for them to obtain approval from the HOA prior to submitting for building permits. The other comment we received throughout this advertisement was from the lake community manager, who basically just stated that she received several phone calls of concern, and then just made sure to note that there is an architectural committee that needs to weigh in. After that email, I haven't received any other communication from that person. And then the last email is from the neighbor to the west, who has concerns about the second story addition and the other additions to the home, just stating that since that lot to the west is a flag lot, that the second story addition and maybe the garage might obscure the view of that particular home from the street. And that was a comment received. And the gentleman actually said he would be in attendance tonight to speak, but I see a name here, but that name does not match that person that made the comment. Nonetheless, so that was the public input received throughout this process. Based on the information provided in the application, the comments that we received, and then the analysis that I provided in the staff report. Staff is recommending approval. The request meets the required criteria of the use permit, and then will conform to the recommended conditions. And as I noted earlier, a unique condition of approval that's non-standard is condition number 3. And that basically just says that they must obtain approval from the HOA's architectural committee prior to building permit application. And I'm available if you have any questions for me.
Commissioners, any questions for Lee?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sumners? Just a quick question. I know our purview here is just limited to the second story issue. But one of the folks that wrote in had the wrong address. I just want to understand if you spoke with that gentleman and if that was just an oversight or if he maybe doesn't understand where this is.
I think it might have been a typo, Commissioner Sumners. The address number matches, but the street is off. But if he was speaking, he did reference the planning case, and the planning case is addressed correctly on the agenda and on the postcard as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else on the commission? Seeing none, we will move on to the public comments portion of the hearing. Do you have some online?
We don't have anybody online, but
But we
Mr.
have the one
Abrams
comment.
Hampson's going to read some comments. Sorry.
Okay. All right. If you're watching and you wish to be heard, get our attention, and we're going to read a comment that was sent to us to be read into the record.
Thank you, Chairman DiDomenico, members of the commission. I have actually 2 comments. One of them was sent to us regarding the west lot. And I know that Lee just indicated this, but I'm going to read it into the record again. We're Ms. Miller's next door neighbors. We have a flag lot, meaning our lot is barely visible from the street. My only comment on her plans is that when completed, our home will be less visible. The second card was from a James Hoffman. He indicates, my main concern is the integrity of the lake wall. I am requesting that an engineering study be conducted to assure that no issues will present themselves. It will be a good precedent going forward to ensure the integrity of the lake wall on future requests of adding mass to existing structures along the lake. That's it.
Very good, thank you very much. And as we had mentioned, it's both a requirement, if this case is approved, that the HOA will have to give approval for this case before it moves any further to permits and construction. And it's also the intention of the architect to have an engineering study as they go forward.
Chair DiDomenico?
Yes.
I forgot to mention, I did receive another comment, and it was related to construction noise and mobilization should the project be approved. He just wanted to know what the projected project schedule would be and the hours of work should the project be approved and go to construction. I responded with information from the city code regarding construction in residential zones, and then the applicant also responded to those questions directly on what their intended hours of construction will be should the project be approved. And I just wanted to note that for the record.
As well as parking for any contractors who are on site.
That's correct.
So, yeah, the response and the exchange of information I thought was very well done and efficient. So thank you for providing that for the neighbors. Ms. James, I don't know if there's anything you wish to come back up and respond to. I don't think there were any specific questions for you. Okay, then we will close the public comments. Oh, Steve?
Chairman DiDomenico, members of the commission, I believe we may have somebody online as an attendee that wishes to speak. I just don't want to overlook
Was this
Grant Holborn.
was this a comment? There is someone who had gone through the,
No,
Hard
they're
process.
attending, and I don't know whether they.
oh, okay.
I don't want to overlook them. That's all.
I don't remember.
We did not have any comment cards submitted with that name, and any public comments via WebEx needed to be submitted
Needed to
2
be
hours in
submitted.
advance, so that's up to the commission
Right.
if they wanted to ask this person if they wanted to speak.
Well, yeah, if we could find out if they're here specifically for this case or,
Okay, I'm gonna unmute them right now, and you can ask them if they
Okay.
need. Oh,
Chairman, a lot of the times there are people who are watching the Cisco WebEx meetings too.
My mom's in a tub.
I could hear background noise, sound like private
Okay.
conversations, so I went ahead and muted them again.
okay. We're going to assume that it's just someone who gets very limited cable channels, and this was the best that they had to offer today. So we will now close our public comment and go into commission discussion and/or motions. Don, I know you're itching to.
Me? Me?
Yeah,
Well,
you're.
yeah, I just make a comment as a resident on the far east side of the lakes. A lot of those homes that are shown with 2 stories were actually part of the original development. This development, because of its density, and I live in one of those 2 stories on the east side, decided to make a lot of 2-story homes. Those along the front, in some cases, and this one in particular, are very small and narrow lots, and they're hard to access because of where they're located in the corner of the street. So, as long as they're structurally done, as long as they don't negatively impact the neighbors, and they meet all the requirements of the Lakes Architectural Committee, I see no reason why we shouldn't approve this, and I would support it.
Is that a motion?
That would be a motion, yes, if you'd
All right,
like.
we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved by Commissioner Casano and seconded by Vice Chair Bauer for approval. And I'm going to assume that those motions are with the conditions of approval that are outlined in the staff report. At this point, I usually ask the applicant, are you in agreement with the conditions of approval that have been drafted? Okay, so the applicant has indicated that they're comfortable with those conditions. And just to remind everybody, one of those conditions is that they have to go through the HOA approval process, which will give the homeowners a chance to get some answers to things like lake walls and hours of construction. All right, any discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, hearing some.
Commissioner Summers, I'd just like to compliment Ms. James, the architect, on this. What we typically see in second-story additions is concerns about folks being able to see into the neighbor's yard next door, or roof decks specifically, the look down. And she's addressed both of those very well. The roof deck looks on the other side, and the windows are positioned so that you don't have that problem. So nice job. Happy to support this one.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Sumners. All right, I will call for a roll call vote. Commissioner Schwartz,
Aye.
Commissioner Casano,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bauer.
Aye.
I also vote for approval. Commissioner Sumners,
Aye.
Commissioner Amorosi,
Aye.
and Commissioner Lloyd.
Aye.
The motion is approved unanimously, and that was our final case. Commissioners, do we have any announcements, any questions? Our next meeting is the 25th, I believe.
Yes, it is. Would you like me to pull up the agenda and read it to you?
Yeah, sure. Let's see what we're in for. And for those people watching online, they may want to, schedule their viewing pleasure for
Chairman,
the
I can
25th
do
here.
that. Chairman, I can, sorry, Joanna, thank you for queuing it up, but I can read the next agenda, which is
Thank
January
you.
20.
Well, perfect, thank you.
I had it queued up. We do have a presentation at the study session that's going to be regarding a new proposed development at the South Pier.
That's right, and we're starting early for that meeting, aren't we?
Um, I'm not sure because the agenda is fairly, the regular meeting agenda is not very long. So, and Manjula is, Gamagen Barnum is going to present that one. Typically when we have a lot of agenda items and we have discussion during study session regarding those agenda, that's when I try to plan ahead of time. For sure, with the TDM Mobility Hub study, we will be starting early just because they need a little extra time. I have to check if I scheduled it for 5:15 or 5:30 for the study session for January 25th, Chairman, but I'll look this up later and email everybody just to double check.
The invite, to save you this step, the invite you sent out to all of us is 5:15, so that's what we all have on our calendars.
Okay, okay. If it is not 5:15, I will change it out for you so you're not, having two different ones.
Okay.
So I'll make sure, I'll double check that and revise it if we are not starting early. We do have only two cases for the next meeting. One is a request for a use permit to allow the required parking within the front yard setback for the Bartow residence at 517 West 11th Street. And the next one is a request for a general plan amendment for land use and density, as well as PAD with a DPR for Haven at Apache, and that's located at 1916 East Apache Boulevard. Those are the only two items.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you
Good
all
night,
for
everyone.
attending.